Hello, everybody out there on YouTube. We are the middle-aged guys. We bullshit about nothing. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
Mouse one.
And this particular video is actually coming on the heels of the great 20th anniversary of something that hit the particular industry, had its particular impact, maybe not as much as some people remember it to actually have. But what I'm talking about, simply, guys, you have it ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. The Nintendo 64. The first official 64-bit console out there. Actual real 64-bit console out there. Nintendo 64 was released out. Actually, the official release date for the United States was September 29th, 1996. It broke street date, actually. I believe there was a Walmart in like Arizona or Oregon that broke street date on it on September 26th, 1996, and it started selling at all retailers after that. What happened to Walmart is that they lost out on a lot of advertisement dollars because they did that. And that's the reason why a lot of retailers are very strict about hitting street date. Reason why I remember that even now, over 20 fucking years later, or almost 20 years later, is that my very first job in retail in the video game industry was actually working for EB Games back before they got bought out by GameStop. And my very first day on the job was September 26, 1996. I remember the day exactly because I came in for the afternoon shift pretty much to go ahead and finish up all the way until closing. And my manager at the time, Keith, he sat there and said, look, I know it's your first day, but I've got this to say. The N64 broke street date. I can't fucking train you today. What I want you to do is whatever I ask you to do it explicitly. Don't ask too many questions. Don't worry about it. He's like, just follow every fucking instruction that I give you. We'll make it through this day because it's already been fucking crazy and it's going to continue to be crazy. And that's how my day went. And that was pretty much kind of like my crash course introduction to the industry and also to the Nintendo 64. The funny thing about this particular system, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spout off a few facts about it before I go out of my way and actually open up the floor. The system was actually the very first system with an analog controller packed in the box. Okay. We've said multiple times that Nintendo is very much responsible for a lot of the innovations that you see at home console play. And yeah, a big contribution was that particular analog stick right there. Okay. A lot of systems, up until that point, the only system that had an analog controller was the PC, and that was pretty much relegated to flight controls. Okay. But this right here, along with Mario 64, demonstrated what analog would do for home consoles. Okay. Now, the controller itself is actually pretty much an example of, form and function working together. This thing, I will say it right now, looks like something out of a fucking cartoon. Okay, it looks like a joke. But the reason why it's set up that way is that you have 3 different fucking configurations that you can use. Shoulder buttons, Z trigger at the bottom. This right here can be used for accessories like a memory card or a rumble pack, which the Dreamcast would do with the jump pack. 6 buttons on the face,
But no Street Fighter came out for it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say right now, Killer Instinct. I'm almost tempted to say that it doesn't count, but let's put that aside for the later. All right, but yeah, functionality and controllers right here. Not only that, but if you look at the front of the Nintendo 64 itself, 4 fucking ports. Okay, this was built with couch multiplayer on in mind, whether it's co-op or versus. Fucking anybody who is from the late 90s who knows about doing split screen on GoldenEye knows exactly how valuable this shit is. All right. Fucking groundbreaking, okay? The other thing that was very groundbreaking was this.
The expansion, yeah.
The very first console that accommodated expansion memory. This right here increased the onboard RAM from 2 megs to 4 megs. Doesn't sound like a lot, but with certain titles, oh my god, it made a huge fucking difference with the visual fidelity, Despite all of that, the Nintendo 64 didn't see as much success as Nintendo hoped it to be. It was part of the 5th generation of consoles, along with the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn. In the end, it ended up selling 32.93 million, almost 33 million units worldwide. And it went out of production. It was finally discontinued, I believe, in 2003. Yep. It had its 4-year run, which is really kind of short for Nintendo consoles, but it came out, it went, and even though it wasn't the huge success that Nintendo hoped it to be, it still has a very, very special place in the video game industry.
Don't forget
I monopolize. What's up? Oh, yeah, that never came here.
That never came here.
Yeah, that never came here. We know about that, but that never came here.
See, that kind of reminds me of the way the Famicom was with its disk drive.
Yep.
And Nintendo was going to bring that back, but that didn't come here, just like the Famicom one didn't come here.
Mm-hmm.
NES.
Well, the thing about the 64, the thing about the 64 DD was that it only released like 13 titles over in Japan.
Oh, just the same as the 64.
Yeah, well, or actually, the same as the Virtual Boy. But back on topic, guys. Before I monopolize any more time, what are your memories about the Nintendo 64? I know we're all old enough to remember it.
Okay.
I remember that this was supposed to be called the Ultra 64. The Ultra 64 that was advertised with the arcade version of the first Killer Instinct, available for your home in 1995, only on Nintendo Ultra 64.
Cruising USA?
And Cruising USA was another. And I was like, I'm going to get those games. And then, first of all, they delayed the fucking system because they weren't. This was the result of Nintendo and Sony not pairing up.
Yep, pretty much. You know what's funny is that the backbone of the Nintendo 64 is a custom silicon graphics chip that allowed them to go ahead and do a lot of the rendering for Killer Instinct and also the Donkey Kong Countries that came out later. But you know what was funny about that was that before Silicon Graphics marketed out their proprietary chip and their hardware to Nintendo, they actually approached Sega at one time as far as asking them, hey, look, we've got something that we think would be really cool for video games. What do you guys think about this? And Sega of Japan told them, no, we already have something in mind. We have competitors who happen to be up in Washington that maybe if you want to go ahead and talk to them about it, go ahead and talk to them. But we're all set with ours because they had already had something in mind for the Saturn. So could you imagine a Sega Saturn that had a fucking DVD drive with the fucking graphical and sound hardware of this?
Games is what matters here. And the thing about it with this here, it was cartridge based, as you all may know by now. That's what pretty much damaged it from the get-go. Many people were moving from cartridge to the CD age. and cartridges were more expensive. Therefore, this was more expensive and complicated to develop for. So most developers went the cheaper route, which was the PlayStation and or the Saturn at that time.
Yeah.
Yes, the couch co-op, great. There are certain games that I played for it and I had great times with it. But I'm still upset. I haven't gotten over the fact that Killer Instinct 1 was supposed to be this thing, the Ultra fucking 64, and that never fucking happened. And Cruising USA was mediocre compared to the arcade game.
Yep.
The arcade game, first of all, they fucked up on the music, and I'm like, wait a second, wow, how did that happen?
Well, you know, the arcade systems were CD-based systems.
Understood. And that's where this thing really, really messed up at. And they lost a lot of third-party publishers. A lot of them. They jumped on PlayStation. And if this would have had the third-party support, PlayStation wouldn't have nearly got the success that it got. Imagine it. I mean, think about what Super Nintendo and Nintendo had as far as third-party. And they left this. Konami left this. Capcom left this. You know, those are two strong ones right there. And it was like, fuck, man. Okay, Final Fantasies didn't go on this thing. Not the ones that everybody wanted.
Yeah, Square left them, like, really quick.
Square track beat it away. Capcom, as far as I know, Resident Evil 2.
And Mega Man Legends 64.
Yeah, and Mega Man Legends 64 are the only two Capcom games that went on this thing.
Yep.
Think about the success that Capcom had on the Super Nintendo. And they were going to branch out to this and make this the arcade system that the Saturn was. But it didn't happen. And even though I had some fun times on this thing, and I still own it, no, fuck, I hated GoldenEye. I hated the Golden Gun. I get shot in toes and I die. I hate that shit. I like Perfect Dark, but I hated fucking GoldenEye. Grandma,
right.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Say again.
What are your thoughts on this?
Nintendo 64.
Well, my thoughts are this. I was not in the United States at the time of the launch. I was actually in Japan. So
Neither was I.
I got the system. My 64 is a Japanese version. I never got around to owning the American version.
Oh, so you only got 4 games for yours.
No, I got some.
Yeah, 4 or so.
Actually, one kind of funny memory that I had was there's a place called SS Sam's, which represents single sailors and Marines. And the 64 was just came out, and you know, this was the place to be, you know, during the week when you're not going to other cities and all. And I remember they had a whole bunch of these sitting at the place on, you know, TVs. And theme, because we got in a conversation with one of our homeboys on the ship, and he said, you know, the Nintendo 64 and whatnot. And then so Theme stacked a Nintendo 64 and a PlayStation on top of each other. And what'd you call it?
Oh God, I was vaguely remembering this until you started explaining. Oh Lord, no, because at first it was PlayStations. I put 2 PlayStations on top of each other. I was like, "You want PS2? There's PS2." And then I stacked this on top of the PS2, both the PS2. I stacked this on top of both PlayStations, and I called it the Nintendo 67.
Yeah, this is a little hilarious thing. But anyway, so yeah, I wasn't in America during this when the 64 was launched, so I only have Japanese.
I was still in the United States when the Japanese 64 was released, and there were some that were imported to game stores.
Oh,
Because I remember there was a game store called Game Land, and they had the Japanese 64 there. So I actually played Super Mario 64,
and
the
that's,
Japanese version, and didn't know what the fuck was going on and didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Yeah.
speaking of the Japanese version, I got it right here. Complete box.
I've got a Japanese version for Mario 64 also. The funny thing about the Nintendo 64 is that, like I said, that was like my introduction to retail, working with video games behind the other side of the counter. And, yeah, my God, did these things sell out fucking quick. And the one thing that really kind of hurt this particular console was the fact that its launch library was weak.
It had only 5 or 6 games to it.
In the first,
Mario, Pilot Wings.
and that was it for like almost the first 3 months. Yeah, and the thing is that they weren't cheap either. Mario, when it came out, was $69.99. Fucking Pilot Wings was $79.99 when it came out.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of people going out of their way and buying the system at launch, getting sick of it within a month. And then instead of going out of their way to going over to Gameland to go ahead and trade it in for money, sitting outside on the bench in the middle of the mall in front of fucking EB where I worked at with a sign. I have a Nintendo 64 and it in the box. Okay. It came out, it retailed for $249.99. Okay. And they would sit there and they would have a sign, Nintendo 64 right here with one controller and a game, $500. And that person, I shit you not, would maybe be sitting out there for 2 hours max. Somebody would walk up to them, buy that fucking system, already used, already fucking played, okay, with the system, a controller, fucking Mario 64, to go ahead and take it away to fucking box it up for fucking Christmas. All right. Yeah, my particular memories of the Nintendo 64 are a little bit different than other people's memories. All right. Let me just be honest. This particular unit right here, I did not get this unit until 1998. When I was already living up in Washington and I was working for Nintendo at the time. I will tell you, if I'd never worked at Nintendo, I would not own a Nintendo 64. Because one of the things that they used to compensate temps who came in to go ahead and work in the call center was that, hey, you're going to work for us as a perk. Not only are you going to sit there and you're going to be making a biweekly hourly pay and everything else, but we're going to give you one of our systems, and then you have access to the Nintendo store. And yeah, that's how I came upon this particular system. If I wasn't ever working at Nintendo, I wouldn't have this fucking system. Because to tell you the truth, it doesn't have that many games that I'm really, really interested in. Now, that's not to say that I didn't build up my library to an amount where I'm like, okay, I can actually justify owning this thing and keeping it around. But yeah, there was a lot of things going on, like what the team said. A lot of people jumped off of Nintendo and went to Sony. Okay, because let's be honest, the licensing practices and contracts that they had with third-party publishers from the NES going into the Super Nintendo and everything else turned a lot of publishers off because they sat there. They're like, "Hey, look, we're putting out a game, and because we have to pay licensing fees, it's going to be $10 more at fucking retail. You're going to put out a game at the same time, and it's going to be $10 less. How are we going to fucking compete and make our money back? And you're telling us we can't even make as many games as we want over the year? All right. Or we've got a shitload of games that we have published in Japan, and you're telling us that we can't bring over certain titles to the U.S.?
Well, the extra $10 is for no load times.
That was part of the script as far as what we had to sit there and tell people as far as reasons to buy a Nintendo 64 over a Dreamcast and a PlayStation. It was no load times. But, yeah, so this right here, this big black box, it not only symbolizes, a lot of things that Nintendo directly contributed to the industry, but it also symbolizes a huge downfall in their market command and their market share.
This is where the decline actually started for their consoles.
For Nintendo, yes.
For the third party, absolutely.
Yes.
That's when third party got up and vacated.
Yeah. They left in droves, is what happened. No. But that's not to say that there aren't games on the system that we don't that we enjoy, because just like with any system out there, look, if you've watched enough of our videos, we've stressed time and time again, it's not about the systems. I don't fucking play systems, all right? I play games.
Yes.
The team doesn't play systems, he plays games. Gray Mouse doesn't play systems, he plays games, all right? Whether we play with ourselves or other people, all right, we play games, okay? And the thing about it is that there were enough games that came out on the Nintendo 64 that we definitely liked, we definitely enjoyed, and we definitely spent time with. Otherwise, this thing would not have a spot on my shelf. It would not have a spot on my entertainment center. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of show and tell. If you didn't expect that to happen, for the next few minutes, guys, we'll go one by one. Games that you happen to have that made this system worthwhile having. Who wants to go first?
Listen, this was one of the primary reasons to have a Nintendo 64 at one point.
And the Rumble Pack.
The Rumble Pack came with this thing.
Yep.
And it had the perfect use for it. Damn it, I love the tanks. Yeah. Love the tanks. Yeah. But now I play this on my freaking 3DS. But this is the original. This is worthwhile. This was worth getting for the system at that time. I mean, fuck. One of the best games I've ever played. I wish that look, Cruising USA, if they would have done it just like this, then it would have been worthwhile. Because this one, everything was pretty much arcade perfect. Even the fucking music.
Yep.
Damn it. I mean, why? All right. This one, I used to play all the fucking time. All the time.
Before EA had a monopoly on fucking all major fucking team sports and shit like that.
Right. Oh my God. If you never play NBA Hang Time, it's basically like NBA Jam with a little bit more put into it. I mean, you had tricks, you had spinning, you had double dunks, and everything about this game functioned pretty well, especially the control with the analog stick. And then, of course, everybody well known by now, if you're on my channel, I'm a wrestling fan. And this is one of the best wrestling games I've ever played in life. Period. I will still play this to this day. I still got my creative characters on there. The theme is on there. My other character, Golden Ass Kicker, is on there. Look, this was one of those games where I could pop in at any time with just about anybody that was around and have some fucking fun with it. Wrestling games, take note, you need to be more like this, or Superfire Pro Wrestling, or Nasumi Championship Wrestling, or Pro Wrestling for the NES. You need to fucking go back to this, because this is when wrestling games were fucking fun.
What about you, Gray Mouse? What are a handful of games? Maybe keep it within 4 or 5 or so.
Oh yeah, this is just real quick. Who goes without saying Super Mario 64?
Oh yeah.
And then Donkey Kong 64.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on. If you didn't have Mario 64 for the system, for the 64, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If for as much as Sony went out of their way to go ahead and push 3D onto the industry altogether, okay, nothing broke it out and made it more acceptable to mainstream fans and mainstream consumers, casual consumers, than Mario fucking 64, all right? As much as Sony went out of their way and they completely banned fucking 2D games altogether for fucking years, okay? They sat there and they're like, everything has to be 3D. Everything has to fucking be 3D. Even though the best fucking titles that came out of the early years of the PlayStation were fucking 2D. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, hello. Suikoden, hello. All right. They went ahead and they were all about not only fucking pushing 3D onto the market, but trying to shove it up everybody's ass.
Yeah.
You know, the problem was is that they didn't have a Mario 64 around to sit there and say, this is what it can give you as far as your gameplay experience. And Nintendo has to be thanked for that.
And
Go ahead, Grey Mouse.
the couple of games that Ogre Battle 64.
Oh, yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And then, of course, I can't go without, a video without talking about Zelda. This has got to be one of the best Zeldas ever, the Ocarina of Time. This is a very key point. Ocarina of Time, the Zelda timeline has officially been done, and this is like one of the key cornerstone of that timeline.
Yep.
And also
died in Zelda 2.
Yep.
Also, Majora's Mask. I don't have that. I don't know what happened to my copy. But these are some of the best games that were on the 64. And before I move on, one particular franchise was not even on the 64, which is kind of crazy.
From Nintendo?
From Nintendo, it's called Metroid. There was never a Metroid 64.
I don't think it could have worked.
You know what's funny is that part of my history with the Nintendo 64 was the fact that I worked at Nintendo, and that's the only reason why I've got a Nintendo 64. I actually received a call from a guy saying that he had designs for a Metroid for Nintendo 64 and all that sort of things. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that you can't sit there and accept anything like that over the phone because as a representative of the company, it can be considered legally binding, and that'll put you in a lot of deep shit. Go ahead and say okay to all that. And I had to sit there and run down the script with him on that. And, the thing about it was that it didn't help that I believe back in this old Nintendo Power issue, they had like tech demo screens where they showed like a Chozo statue, what it would look like if it was rendered out for use on the Nintendo 64.
Mm-hmm.
And that fueled a lot of that, Unfortunately, they never got around to that. They wouldn't actually get around to that back until the GameCube, which is something altogether,
It's really disheartening that most of Nintendo's major powerhouses had a game on there. Castlevania, Zelda, Mario, and I was like, no Metroid?
But that's not to say that there wasn't good games on it, because even as critical as I am for this system, there was quite a few good games on it, at least enough to go ahead and validate me having in the system. Like one game off the top of my head that's goes under everybody's radar is Wind. Okay, this did cover shooting before a lot of the modern cover shooting games out there. Okay. Before Gears of War, this did cover shooting, okay, from fucking Koei, who is now part of Tecmo, all right? Great game if you have to pick it up. Part 2 is on the PS2 and also the Xbox, if you find that, all right? Another great game that's out there that doesn't get a lot of credit, and you've heard about it on this fucking channel, Mischief Makers. Buy Treasure, okay? Completely out of the way and completely Japanese, but once you get into actually playing it, You know, this is one of those games you can't get away with describing it to people. You have to let them play it.
You gotta play it. You
Yeah.
cannot describe that game. Look, you shake things as you. That is your attack. Shake,
Yep.
shake, 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 shake. Oh my god!
I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I got to like the third stage, and then all of a sudden she was grabbing things on the stage and shaking the whole fucking stage. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
Shake, shake.
Continuing on, you know, great games that are on the system.
Yeah.
This guy,
When has he had a bad game?
yeah, he's never been in a bad game. And Kirby, what's this? The Crystal Shards is not, you know, it's not an exception to that. You know, he's never been in a bad game. And this is a great translation into 3D. Not as graceful as Mario 64, but still a very, very solid game. Okay. Now, another game that a lot of people kind of sleep on is this particular game right here, Hybrid Heaven by Konami, before they turned into spineless fucking slugs, okay, leaving slime trails all over the place. And this also makes use of that memory pack, okay? I can describe it as this. It's an action RPG. When you get into combat, not only is it close quarters combat, but it's close quarters combat where you are taking mutants and you're suplexing them on their heads and pile driving them or fucking, you know, kneeing them in the head. This is a great fucking game. All right. Now, lastly, another one that kind of seems obvious, but has to be noted.
Yeah.
Rare was on the top of their game when they made this fucking.
Yes.
And I just want to mention this right now before you say anything else.
Go
There's
ahead.
a reason why it has an M rating. That's all I have to
Yes.
say.
You know,
That is the crudest humor you could
for the
find in a
longest-
Nintendo game.
yeah, for the longest time, Nintendo was declared as, oh, Nintendo's that family-friendly company. It's all for little kids. They're never going to put anything out for adults on it. Rare listened to that. Nintendo listened to that. And this is also around the time that the ESRB and a whole bunch of other stuff, I think Columbine and a whole bunch of other shit was coming around. This was Rare's and Nintendo's big fuck you
Yep.
to a whole bunch of critics and a whole bunch of detractors about Nintendo
Did
not
Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3 come on the Super Nintendo?
Oh yeah, but that was around the time that the ESRB was set up. But remember at the time, well, a thing that I heard even on the Nintendo hotline, working on at their fucking call center, was, you know, well, why would I get a Nintendo 64 for my kid? I mean, he's like 14, you know, he's going to be looking at getting like other games. In which case the script went, well, sir, you know, I understand that if you want to go ahead and get those particular systems for, you know, XYZ kid or whatnot, you know, they offer these particular things. But this is what the Nintendo 64 offered. You know, I couldn't go out of my way and sit there and say, pick up Conker's Bad Fur Day. All right. That prepubescent, pimply-faced motherfucker who thinks that saying fuck and shit and making pussy jokes equivalates to mature, all right, is going to go ahead and fawn all over that and jack off to it until he passes out and dreams about this bullshit, all right? I couldn't sit there and say that, but I really wanted to, okay? But yeah, Conker's Bad Fur Day, definitely a great game.
We forgot to mention Banjo and Kazooie.
Well, I would say that that's Rare at the top of the game for another reason, okay? But, you know, obviously, 20 years later, Nintendo 64, great system. I didn't sit there and expect it to have quite the impact on my life that it did. But you know what? It did. And some of that's maybe a little bit outside of what I initially expected and things like that. But you know what? I always love it when I sit there. I'm able to sit there and celebrate anniversaries for things that make an impact in my life. And this right here, whether or not I was a fan or not, was a part of my life. You know, with that, If you guys have them, I think this requires a toast. 20 years, Nintendo 64, not the biggest impact, but Nintendo, you're still plugging around, and shit, you're the only game in town, really. Cheers.
Cheers. Do a barrel roll.
You know what? If I get drunk enough, I'll probably decide to go ahead and do that. With that, thank you for sticking all the way up to this point in time. If you're so kind, hit like, hit subscribe, leave us a comment below. We are the middle-aged guys. I am the Reverend.
The theme here.
Gray Mouse 1.
Once again, for the benefits of common sense, logic, and gaming. And thank you, Nintendo 64. You're supposed to be the Ultra. You're supposed to give us Killer Instinct 1, but fine. You still have some great games on it, and you introduced 3D the way it was supposed to be done with Toothless Flicks. Mario and Zelda.
Games. The best Zelda games ever.
Mario and Zelda. Credits.
Do a barrel roll. I want myself a whiskey barrel right now. Wait a minute. I might already be there.